Tinnitus is an absolute goldmine of a VA disability claim, and it could be disappearing very soon. So today I'm going to show you not only how to win a tinnitus VA claim, but also how it could be opening your path to 100% permanent and total rating. I'm Jordan Anderson with VAClaimsAcademy.com. Let's get into it. So tinnitus is interesting because it's one of those conditions that there's no proof needed to know that you have tinnitus or not. You're simply diagnosed with tinnitus or you're not diagnosed with tinnitus. And some people say tinnitus, however you want to pronounce it. Now, people think that there's a test that you're given where they can tell if you have tinnitus or not. This is not the case. Oftentimes what you've actually received is a hearing exam, and they've coincidentally done that when you've claimed tinnitus, but it really doesn't tell you whether or not you do have this condition. Now, if you've been in the military before, you've probably qualified on small arms, right? You've shot weapons, things like this. This could all be acoustic trauma. Now, acoustic trauma, just a fancy word for loud noises, right? And this could be a catalyst for getting a secondary or a primary service connection for your tinnitus. The interesting part about this, not only do you not have to have proof that you have tinnitus besides a diagnosis, because there's no test for it, but you also don't necessarily have to have records in your military service. All my older vets are probably rejoicing right now. I know y'all didn't go to the doctor. This could be as simple as your job, right? Your MOS, your specialty while you were in the military. If you were a mechanic, if you were working on the flight line, if you were small arms, if you were heavy weapons, things like this. There are different categories of high noise exposure jobs, and I'll leave a link for in the description below that you can go ahead and check to see if your job was on the high noise exposure list. Why is this important? Because when you're filing for a tinnitus claim, if you're not already connected for it, this could be important evidence, and leveraging that, letting the VA know that, hey, remember, I was this job while I was in. I know I didn't go to the doctor, but it's not a coincidence that I was working on the flight line. Now I have ringing in my ears. So in summary, before we move on to how to get secondary claims, if you think that you have tinnitus, meaning if you're hearing ringing in your ears, maybe buzzing in your ears, perhaps a fullness in your ear type of feeling, go to your audiologist, go to your ear, nose, throat specialist, go ahead and let them know about that, and they may diagnose you. And again, if you have any records or mention of the fact that you were going through high noise exposure or the acoustic trauma, that could be very easy means for service connection, even without a nexus letter, even without medical records in service. By the way, if you'd like me to personally help with your VA disability claim, click the first link in the description below. Now, I know why you're still here. It's because you want to figure out how you can, this could be the pathway to your 100% rating. And we're going to get into that right now. As most of us know, a tinnitus rating by itself is about a 10% claim. It's just a 10% claim right now. And again, this could be taken away very soon, maybe as soon as April of 2025. So if this is you, make sure you lock in your place quickly by the end of this video. So a 10% rating isn't that remarkable, right? Especially with VA math, that's not exactly getting you to the 100% mark. Now, let me show you what will. Okay, so what I'm about to show you is we have some secondary conditions that tinnitus is going to be our anchor for, our foundation for. We have one that's going to be a 30% rating a lot of the times, one that's going to be up to 50%. We have an, on average, 70% condition that's very common as a secondary, and then one that could be 100% rating just for this other condition. We're gonna go from least to biggest percentage here in order. And I'm gonna show you some scientific evidence that connects the two. I'll also link that for you in the description so that you can actually use this as part of your claim before it closes up here in potentially April. Now, just briefly, let me explain to you what the strategy is behind a secondary condition and what a secondary service connection even is. If you get tinnitus service connected, and let's say your tinnitus causes or aggravates, another condition, this could be a number of things. We'll get into them specifically. That second condition can be claimed and get service connected as what is called in VA claims a secondary service connection. This process is a little bit more complex than a primary claim, but I'm going to actually show you some results from the Board of Veterans Appeals where veterans have been favorable winning these exact connections for big percentages. So let's get right into that. So let's get started with our first. We have a 30% rating right here as a secondary claim. This is vertigo. Now, let me pull up a bit of a presentation for you because this will be super helpful. Vertigo secondary to tinnitus, okay, is a winnable claim. This is a winnable claim. How do we know? Well, right here, I have an actual Board of Veterans Appeals snippet. This is a screenshot from BVA case. So someone appealed their claim and won, as we can see here, vertigo secondary to tinnitus. Entitlement for service connection for vertigo secondary to tinnitus is granted, okay? This is granted. Now, why is this the case? Well, for a few reasons. This is actually backed by scientific peer-reviewed literature. Everything that I'm showing you here, all of these studies are going to be peer-reviewed. That means it's the gold standard for actual scientific evidence. And again, I'll provide these for you in the link in the description below this video so you can use them. Now, this is from the NIH, National Library of Medicine. This is called benign oh my goodness, positional vertigo and tinnitus. Guys, it's a study that actually links tinnitus and its bidirectional relationship with vertigo. So feel free to use that if you're doing a secondary claim. Now, what do you need to actually win this practically? Of course, you need a diagnosis for tinnitus, a diagnosis for vertigo. You're going to want a personal statement that's well written, essentially explaining how your vertigo symptoms really didn't start setting on until after you experienced the tinnitus. And after that, you're going to want a nexus letter to tie this all together because obviously a doctor's note is going to be huge. We have the scientific literature. You can actually include this in the references in the nexus letter if the doctor will sign off on it. Otherwise, you can just submit it as part of your claim as additional correspondence to strengthen that. So, personal statement, of course, a diagnosis for both conditions, and a nexus letter to tie this all together, and you can absolutely win this. Again, this is a 30% on average rating. Okay, we're back here on my ugly drawing. What do we have next? For a 50%, if I can write, for a 50% rating that is actually achievable, we have migraines. Now, how can tinnitus cause headaches? How could tinnitus cause migraines? It's pretty obvious, right? If you had just a blaring alarm clock going on in your head all the time, it could probably cause you headaches. And guess what? Scientists, again, absolutely agree with us. Let's pull up some peer-reviewed literature here. Again, link in the description below. Again, National Library of Medicine. This is NIH, it's PubMed. We have the connection of tinnitus and headaches. It's very well researched and studied. I would actually say that between this and actually the very last one, second to last coming up here, so stay tuned for that, are some of the most, ironclad connections. It's very researched. I see veterans win this claim all the time. Tinnitus causing migraines. And again, a 50% rating if it's affecting you financially. So basically, if this is taking you out of commission for a few hours and where you just have attacks and you kind of got to lay down, retreat to your dark room, that's kind of where the 50% rating threshold is, especially with a good, solid personal statement. Same things apply as far as what you need. Diagnosis for both conditions, a personal statement that is solidly written, and a good nexus letter from your treating doctor. That is how you win tinnitus causing headaches, migraine secondary to tinnitus. By the way, if this is giving you some value, make sure you hit the like button and definitely share this with someone who needs it because time is running out on these opportunities. Okay, we got two left. We have a 70% and a potential 100%. Now my regulars probably know and have an idea of what this 70% is. Say it with me. This is a mental claim. Mental conditions on average, this is average, not the high end, this is on average, get a 70% rating as of right now. Now again, this could change in the near future of how mental conditions are rated. That's getting kicked around. So if this is you, what I'm about to explain, it's important that you start getting the ball rolling right now as far as today, preferably, honestly. So let's go here. Mental conditions secondary to tinnitus. What does that include? Essentially any mental condition. This could be adjustment disorder. It could be anxiety, depression. It could be chronic pain syndrome, or AKA somatic symptom disorder. That's the one. Somatic symptom disorder could be secondary to tinnitus. All of these are rated the exact same because as of right now, all mental ratings are using the exact same rating criteria, and most importantly, you cannot stack mental ratings. So if you're rated right now for your PTSD, or you're rated right now for your insomnia, let's say you have 30%, don't try to add on another secondary condition for mental, because they're just going to get absorbed into that 30% rating. Make sure you just go for an increase on whatever mental condition that you already have. So this is from the American Tinnitus Association, okay? Depression, anxiety. Did you know that estimates suggest that 48 to 78% of patients with severe tinnitus also experience depression, anxiety, or some other behavioral disorder? That's an overwhelming amount. Now, it's so common, of course you're going to have some peer-reviewed literature on it, right? Tinnitus and mental symptoms go essentially hand in hand. And again, here's some peer-reviewed research from Frontiers to go ahead and support that. Link down in the description below. Now, I just want you to think about that for a moment. 48 to 78% of people who experience severe tinnitus also experience some type of mental effects. So that's the most common way to turn a 10% rating into a massive, on average 70% rating by just going ahead and explaining how those conditions connect. What's the best way to convey to the VA rater how those conditions connect in your life and how your life is affected by this? Through a personal statement. It's the only time that you actually get to write something directly to your VA rater. So take advantage of personal statements. If this is the first time you're hearing and you were thinking, oh, hey, you know what? I did my claim last time and my VSO didn't tell me about personal statements. Bingo, red flag. That should be a red alert. Not even an alert, it's an opportunity, right? Because you could probably do better on this upcoming claim that you do here in the next few months. Okay, here we are. The biggest, highest rating secondary condition to tinnitus, and honestly, getting the 100% rating is shockingly tame. You would think that it'd have to be so severe to get 100% rating for one condition. When I tell you what the rating criteria is, you're going to be very surprised. Again, one more time, if you like this video, definitely hit the like button, sound off with your thoughts below, and more importantly, share this with someone who needs it, because again, there's not a lot of time left. Now, for 100% rating, hopefully I get this spelling right. I can never get this right. Okay, Meniere's disease. Now, this is actually very similar to vertigo. This is very similar to vertigo. Of course, vertigo is like the feeling of maybe sea legs or the world is spinning, and it's not a horrible feeling I hear when people have vertigo symptoms. Meniere's disease could be very similar to this, but it's actually a completely separate diagnostic code, meaning a totally separate rating criteria according to the VA. So getting diagnosed specifically with Meniere's disease is going to be important here. Now let's see, again, this is pretty shocking. Let's go ahead and see what the criteria is. I'm going to read this out to you right now. Meniere's disease, according to the VA, if you have, this is with or without tinnitus. So technically you don't even have to have tinnitus if you have Meniere's disease, as a primary condition already connected. But this is essentially, you have what's called cerebellar gait. That's a fancy term. Essentially means you're staggering when you walk, okay? You have hearing impairment with vertigo attacks. And again, you're staggering when you walk more than one time per week. More than one time per week. So if you have diagnosed Meniere's disease, you're service connected for tinnitus already, and if if you had to stagger when you stood up or kind of go off balance, more than one time per week, that's the threshold for a 100% disability rating for that condition alone. It's incredible. That's a hugely high value condition. Now, as far as connecting this secondary to tinnitus, Of course, I got to give you some scientific literature. We have to back up your claim. And right here, we have the gold standard, right? PubMed, absolutely. Tinnitus and Meniere's disease, characteristics and prognoses in the tinnitus clinic sample. Now, again, this is abstract. Right here, you can read through this. I'll link in the description below, of course. These are all things to include with your Nexus letters, or again, send them off separately. But that could literally be the difference between this and your personal statement. And of course, having a Nexus letter could be the difference between making or breaking, in this case, your 100% VA claim. That's why watching these types of videos are hugely important, and putting effort is important because there's almost no better effort you can put into to get a better reward rather than a tax-free, essentially passive income, especially when you deserve it because these things are service connected. So now look at this. Instead of, again, we just had tinnitus. This is where most veterans kind of stop. That 10% rating, that's cool. That's like, if you had it alone, that's like $150 per month, right? But look at how tinnitus, I like to call it, use a sports analogy, you get tinnitus to break down the defense. Tinnitus is your jab, you're finding your distance. And once you get the tinnitus in, you could follow up with that too, right? You could follow up with the big stopping power conditions, high value conditions that if you're experiencing them, connecting them is a no-brainer. Again, this is a very limited time opportunity because it looks like they're going to be changing this pretty soon. So the good thing is right now, at the end of this video, you can go ahead and create your intent to file. Now, ideally, your intent to file locks you in and grandfathers you under the current rules so that even if your decision happened after, let's say, if they change in April 2025, you could still get this, condition, tinnitus, as its own claim, as its own condition, and these secondaries as well. So I really hope that this helps you out. I hope it's timely and eye-opening for you. Again, if it was, definitely show some love to the video and share it with someone who needs it. I'll see you in the next one.